And good morning, Dr. Wells. Again, thank you for joining us. My name is Richard Palais. I'm your presenter on this morning. I'm with AmPac Business Capital. And in AmPac Business Capital, we like to say we make access as easy as ABC. And the process is simply application, it's business review, and it's closing, hence our ABC. We're a 501c3, mission-based lender. The Department of Treasury and the U.S. Small Business Administration have actually provided us authorization to do loan programs for both of those areas, and one would be a CDC, Community Development Corporation, and the other would be a Certified Development Financial Institution. As a community lender in the department that I'm managing, we can do a combination of loans between the two, $50,000 of SBA, $100,000 of a CDFI loan. So in aggregate, you can get as much as $150,000. If you're looking for lending for larger transactions, buying a building, buying a business, renovations, equipment purchases, etc., for your practice. And these loans would then be obtained through a bank, and then we partner with the bank, and we can provide loans up to $30 million in combination with the bank. And I'm going to skip down to the next slide. Well, thank you, Doctor. You see, I can turn my camera on now. I thought it was on. Let me see. Let's see if that worked. It's still not bringing my picture up. I'm not sure what happened there because I'm clicking to start the video. I'm not sure what happened, so we'll continue to proceed, and please accept my apologies. I have on my screen, I can see that I've put to open the video up, and yet it's not showing, but I'm glad you can hear my voice. So we'll just continue to move forward, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. What do we do here at AmPac? As I mentioned about the combination of loans, we do the government-backed loans, we do the SBA loans, and we do, of course, direct financing. The mission for AmPac Business Capital is that we are here to make communities better and families stronger by being champions of job makers. So in doing that, we are supporting small business owners, those champions of job makers, and there's the services that we provide in the way of lending, but also we have business partnerships where we have partners such as the Small Business Development Centers of California, SCORE, University of San Bernardino is also partnering with us, so we can provide training programs. We also have the ability to provide direct business advising through our partners. So if you need just a little explanation, a little help, a little training, just assistance in moving your business forward, we're here to help that. And then, of course, business lending is a part of a core of what we do. In our business lending, we value saying yes when others are saying no. Perhaps you've been to your bank or you've been to maybe a credit union or smaller institutions, and they were not able to make the loan. Through our relationships with those institutions, they do send clients like yourself over to us. We take a look and try to figure out what is your story and how we can provide lending to you. As I mentioned earlier, we are a matchmaker. We do have partners that we work with that we can share with you to help you get what you need, whether it be finance from us or whether it be, as I mentioned earlier, assistance in some way to ensure that you are getting knowledge to move your life and your business forward. And we pride ourselves in the relationships that we have. We do work with businesses from startups to purchasing large commercial real estate. As you can see, traditional banks call on us. As mentioned earlier, we are a nonprofit, and because we're a nonprofit, our mission is about financing business. We're not owned or governed by shareholders where we have to keep the shareholders' profit in mind, but instead we are governed by our mission, and that is to help serve the small business community. That does mean we have flexible underwriting with a heart. That does mean we have more compassion, if you will, and more ability, I should say, more ability as well as our compassion to extend to say, we understand the story, life happens to all, let's try to make this loan happen for this borrower. And we do have rewards in some of our programs where if you pay on time, you can get a bonus. In one of our programs, our minority small business program, you pay for 12 months on time. We can reduce your interest rate by 0.5%. We can do that for a succession of 3 years as long as you pay on time. So if we started a loan at 3.75, that means 5 years, and it's a 5-year loan. That means after the first year, when you start the clock, years 2 through 4, by the time you reach your 5th year, your loan is only 2.25% on repayments. We love doing things like that. We also have, with our minority small business program, if you take training and you get a certificate from said training, we like you to get training in areas where maybe you feel you need some more strength. We put you with partners, you get 4 certificates. Guess what? At the end of that first year, your first bonus is you can choose $1,000 cash in hand or $2,500 off your loan amount. Again, we're here to serve. Now to our arts and cultural program presentation on this morning. California Office of Small Business Advocate is who is governing this particular program. $2 billion was given to, the California Office of Small Business Advocate for distribution to small businesses throughout the state of California. In partnership with Lendistry, they developed a scorecard how they would judge applicants that apply for grants, and those grants will range from grants will be 5,000, 15,000, or 25,000, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. The first couple of rounds, let's see, when it first opened last year, December 30th was the first day of the program and the first round of the program. And please note we are at round 4 now. There was $500 million being made available to small businesses who would apply. And we'll talk more about the application process. Of that $500 million, it was split into 2 rounds for distribution for those eligible businesses that were selected based on varying criteria. And then our governor in 2021, this year, in February, decided it's necessary to provide more support to small businesses throughout California. And he, through the authorization of state committee, was able to get an award and allowance to increase the $500 million to $2 billion. He quadrupled the amount. We are now down to round 4. This is a set-aside round specifically for those in the arts and cultural program administration. There's $47,875,000 being made available to those who are applying for this grant between March 16th and March 23rd. It's a small window of opportunity, but it's a great window of opportunity that has been opened because over $47 million is being made available. This, unlike the PPP, this is not a first come, first served basis program. This instead is a program that is designed for all those that meet the scorecard criterion. So whether you apply on the 16th or you apply on the 23rd of March, you have an opportunity at this particular grant. The objective here was to ensure that all businesses get an opportunity to apply. Oh, I have magically appeared on the screen. Great. So hello, Dr. Wells, here I am. Those organizations that are eligible in this particular round, well, let's first go over the revenues. What the Lendistry is looking to determine is that there was a loss in revenues between comparative quarters. For this particular round, they're comparing quarter 2 and quarter 3 of 2020 versus quarter 2 and quarter 3 of 2019. So those are the comparative quarters. If there has been a decrease in income has been impacted by COVID-19, so you were shut down, you had to reorganize your organization before you can allow the public to enter back again by setting up certain barriers, etc., taking those COVID-19 safety measures and putting them into place. You were impacted during those quarters, you demonstrate the loss, then you're definitely an eligible candidate for this particular grant. There are 2 stages to the grant. The first stage is the application process. You're signing an application certification, you're uploading entity documentation, and you're uploading a government ID. This is any person in the nonprofit that's representing a nonprofit. They're uploading their information there. And then the second round, if selected, bank validation information is placed into the system for distribution of your funds after validation of all information has been submitted. The active nonprofits must have been operating at least since June 1st, 2019. If the nonprofit opened any time after that, you're not eligible for this grant. This is for those that were at least ceased operating before June 1st, 2019, or established before 2019, because maybe, if we remember correctly, when COVID hit, it actually hit in February, early on, then was declared a pandemic by March. So maybe you were established and you intended to open up for operation, but COVID shut you down then, please go ahead and apply. We will certainly sort through that at the time when your application is indeed selected. Nonprofit organizations must be able to provide their 2019 tax returns or the 990s. We have to have some evidence that taxes were filed on the business. So whether it's the returns or the 990s, it must be provided to be considered for this particular grant. And of course, we've already spoken about providing entity validation that the entity exists. As far as gross revenues, and I say that word again, gross revenues, and though the word gross is in the expression, it's definitely attractive, right? Because it's gross revenues. As long as the nonprofit can prove that it grossed revenues of at least $1,000, you are eligible for this grant, to apply for this grant, possibly be selected for this grant. And there is no limit to the amount of income that the nonprofit could have earned. In the first 3 rounds, nonprofits as well as small businesses were limited to revenue generation of no more, according to the tax returns, of $2.5 million in gross revenues. But in this particular round, for round 4, specifically for arts and cultural program administrators, there is no limit. There are, however, a restriction on the NAICS codes, North American Industry Classification System Code. You must fall in one of these 15 NAICS codes to apply for this grant. If your organization has not used a NAICS code before, you're not sure what a NAICS code is, or you're using a different NAICS code, what you'll want to do is go to the NAICS.com system, look at these other NAICS codes. Maybe there's a description within this NAICS code that actually fits yours. So though you've used a different NAICS code when you filed, you still fall in these particular categories. There's a cross-reference. Use that particular NAICS code in your application and move forward. When a human being gets involved in the process, they may look at the document and say, well, your tax returns say your NAICS code is this. You're saying you're using this particular NAICS code for the particular grant. That is okay, because you could just explain, this is why I picked that NAICS code and I am indeed eligible. Ineligible businesses, there must be a physical location of the nonprofit here in California. You could be incorporated in another state, you could even operate in another state, but there has to be a branch of that organization operating within the state of California as well. And nonprofit businesses that are not registered as a 501c3 are not eligible to apply for this particular grant. If there's a 501c6 or 501c19 and you are involved in religious or lobbying activities, you cannot apply. If you are a nonprofit arts and cultural organization that is using 501c6 or 501c19, but you're arts and cultural, or you're a part of a religious organization, but it's a school, it is a daycare or some other social service, you are eligible to apply for this grant. And we're not going to go through too much of the information on ineligible businesses. If you desire a copy of this application guide, you can find it on the Lendistry's website, which is careliefgrant.com. They are a for-profit organization, so it is .com. Please be wary of careliefgrant.gov or any other derivative of that. It must be careliefgrant.com. That is the only website available for Lendistry. There are some others who are using different website addresses, and there is one actually that is mirroring this in order to capture information, and they're not tied to this program at all. And actions are being taken to make sure that site is shut down, because it's definitely an imposter site. Use of funds, let's move forward. You can use it for your employee expenses. You can see here, so this is your payroll costs, your healthcare benefits, sick leave, etc. Your employees can be paid these monies from this particular grant, but you cannot use it for human resource expenses, such as the state share of Medi-Cal, employee bonuses, severance packages, severance pay, taxes, legal settlements. And I think this is intuitively obvious, but just in case not, I'll continue to read: personal expenses for other expenses unrelated to COVID-19, and of course, expenses for repairs or damages already already covered by business insurance reimbursement, or those provided by donations for repairing of those services. Money is provided by donations. So you can't then in turn say, well, I'm going to use this money instead of the donation money that I received. So we want to make sure that's remembered. And I also highlighted here costs associated with reopening your business in a COVID-19 environment. Do know that you can receive reimbursement for those particular funds, or using these funds going forward for that specific purpose. This side is just further emphasizing the 15 NAICS codes that you can apply under. So we're going to continue to move forward. This is for eligible nonprofits. So here it is, the moment you're waiting for. So you said 5,000, 15,000, 25,000, Richard. What are the revenues that correspond to each category? Using the 2019 taxable year only. This is not for 2020. This is the 2019 taxable year. Gross revenues between $1,000 and $100,000. You are eligible, drum roll please, to receive a $5,000 grant. Annual revenues of $101,000 to $1 million, you are eligible to receive a $15,000 grant. And then finally, those gross revenues greater than $1 million to infinity and beyond, as Buzz Lightyear would say, you are eligible to receive $25,000 grant if you are selected. So the required documentation, I mentioned briefly that there were 2 stages to this particular application process. That first stage is completing the grant application. It's uploading the the application certification form. There will be a grant certification if you're awarded later, but for this one, it's an application certification form. It's a part of the system. It must be signed in longhand. It must be signed in longhand and then uploaded back into the system. And then we talked earlier about your entity documents, and we will need either the tax returns or the Lendistry will need the tax returns or the 990 to verify gross revenues, and of course to verify the gross revenues, and of course paying, submitting information for tax purposes to the IRS. Stage 2, the system does ask for banking information. Well, in stage 2, you can wait to complete the banking information after you've received notice that you've been selected for a grant. And also, we talked about, other than the application certification, the other documents that I talked about, if you're looking at the slide pages, bullet points 2 through 4, you can submit those later as well. Your application will continue to show that it's incomplete. We'll see where that shows, but the reality is you can submit it later. You don't need it just to get your application in the system. We talked about an application certification. What is that? Where is that? It's legalese explaining about the application process, consideration, and all the parameters about the program. You can download it. When you enter the website, you'll see something that says, as a matter of fact, if you ask for a copy of this guide, you'll be able to click and download and see and read for yourself the nonprofit cultural instructions for the nonprofit organization. So the application certification specifically for nonprofit cultural institutions is available before you even apply. You can download it, read it, and decide, yes, I want to abide by the terms and conditions, and I want to be possibly selected for the grant. The system is demonstrating here when you download the document, when you complete the document, save it to your desktop. Very important. If you complete the document just when you open Adobe and do not save it to your desktop, despite the fact that you'll take the time to read through the document, provide a whole series of initials, and preparing to sign, and you didn't print it, or you wanted to just try to upload it, you can't. You have to save it to your computer. Then you should actually complete all the information, save it to your desktop, print it, sign it, and put it back on your desktop again, because you will be uploading it as a part of the application process. And you do need to sign. So note that it does say eligible handwriting. It says complete the form by hand at the top, but you can initial the areas where it asks for an initial by your typewriter. Look at me, I'm dating myself. I can't believe this. By your computer. You can do this on your phone, by the way, but the idea is you will need to ultimately sign the application above your signature when you prepare to upload it. It is a 4-page application certification, and that's what these next 2 slides are showing. It's 4 pages. This information here will all be typed by your computer. You will see here, you see number 13, number 14, you see next to all these numbers, there is places to initial. So it's just a demonstration of the form, but it does say signature. If you do, I noticed that someone had a, no, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of a PPP loan. You do need to hand sign this one on PPP loans. You can actually use an electronic signature as long as your program indicates this is an electronic signature as provided by the application, and then you're typing your name. So the opportunity to be selected, as you can see, this is demonstrating the further processes. We had just closed round 3, so it's talking about that there for small businesses. But here's where we are. Arts and cultural nonprofits, right here. Round 4, arts and cultural. The purpose of this slide and what we want to demonstrate and put out here graphically for you is that during round 4, this is specific to arts and cultural organizations. I will say this ad nauseum during the course of this presentation so that everyone who's listening understands this is specifically for arts and cultural organizations. So this almost $50 million is being made available to that segment of the market space only. If for some reason, when this round completes, which it completes on next week on the 23rd, and eventually you may receive a notice that says you're ineligible, please know that in round 5, you're welcome to apply again. I'm sorry, in round 5, you are welcome to, I'm sorry, now I'm getting backwards. Based on some other rounds I'm thinking about it because of my age. So in round 5, because you applied in round 4 and you were not selected, notice how it says here, round 4, arts and culturals, you will be able to have your application moved into round 5. And then what will happen is those that did not apply before can apply again in round 5 and apply again in round 6. And that's where you'll notice here, it says round 5, round 6, all nonprofits. So your application moves forward and you will not need to apply again. Round 4, arts and cultural. Who's in the competition right now in round 4? Who are the applicants that are applying? Those that were in rounds 1, 2, and 3 that fit the NAICS code, that were nonprofits in in arts and cultural programming that didn't get selected, move into this particular round. As well as those who are applying for the first time. You're going through the courses of providing all your documentation to be considered. The scorecard then prevents a score, and those that elevate to the top get the highest scores. We don't know what the scoring mechanism is, by the way, besides all the components of it. Only 2 people on the planet know. Our governor's office and one person in Lendistry knows, but otherwise no one else knows, to try to keep the system as open and as honest as possible. So during the course of that scoring, 1 of 2 things are going to happen. These are just steps, but 1 or 2 outcomes are going to happen as a result of the scoring. Either you're going to be selected for the grant or you're not selected for the grant. If you're selected for the grant, the validation process continues. The grant agreement and the W-9 is then issued after you've been validated. And then finally, it's the distribution of the award. For those who are not selected, you get a letter that says you're not selected and you cannot apply any further. Some tips for applying for this grant. So these particular tiles here are just things to know before you apply. When you go to Lendistry's website, you will see that there's an application guide. That's what you're looking at here today. You're looking at an application guide, pages from the application guide. You can review that. If you decide I don't want to read all that information in the application guide, there are webinars, pre-recorded webinars that step-by-step, the information that I'm going through today will actually show you step-by-step how to upload your application, how to complete information. We're going to go through those steps, but do know it's also going to be available in webinars online. I'm sorry, I'm saying webinars videos online. Preparing the required documents. It's just reminding you that when you look at the, going back to the beginning, the application guide, it's going to say the particular documents that you needed. We've talked about it during this presentation. You will need the application certification. You will need a copy of your entity document, which demonstrates that you have been authorized by some government agency, whether it be the Secretary of State or your local government municipality authorizing you to operate as a nonprofit in the area. You need to have that ready because that needs to be uploaded. Your 990s or the full tax return, whichever you use for your nonprofit, must be prepared because that's going to be uploaded. And finally, whoever is applying on behalf of the organization will need to provide a copy of their driver's license. And now this says find and apply through a partner. There are no partners for this particular round. You'll notice when you get to the website, it is directly to Lendistry. So some tips that you want to know as you're preparing to complete this application. We recommend that you use Google Chrome. The application is accessible through the other search engines that exist, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari, and Bing. However, for the most fluid experience, if you will, we suggest that you use Google Chrome. Even if you never go back to it after this particular process, it's worth anywhere between $5,000 or $25,000 for you to just simply say, I'll use Google Chrome just for this process. The tip number 2, valid email address. I've worked with small businesses and organizations that have info@email addresses. That is not a valid address for this particular program. Please establish another address that doesn't have info@. The computer is not going to discern that, oh, this is a legitimate address for this organization. It's going to say it's an info@. No, I'm not going to accept it. And you'll find out later why that's important. Emails ending with @contact.com or @nonreply.com. Also not accepted by the system. This is a tip for you. It's best not to use that. Just provide a new email just for this process if need be, and then close it out. You can use any form of document upload apps that are available. We're just placing, or Lendistry is placing here at your attention, Genius Scan at your attention, and access to Genius Scan or Adobe Scan. They are great applications that can be used. We found them to be successful. And of course, you can see from the diagrams, it's pretty self-explanatory, but let's just speak to the obvious. This is how you want to correctly upload. A flat surface, no interruptions in the background, just the document. You don't want the computer camera to look and say, oh, what is that? I don't understand. Disturbance, noise, this would be considered noise, background noise. We don't want background noise. You want it straight on. You want it with no additional distraction to a camera lens on your document. You don't want to put it on your knee or put it where there's an overexposure of light, and of course holding it up to a window. Just anything other than placing it on a flat surface that has no noise to it is what you want to avoid. That's just the bottom line. Clearing your cache. We've had people say, I went into the application, I got myself started. When I tried to go back into it, I went to a different partner. This is in a different scenario, but let's just remind you of this. I went somewhere else and I could not get back to my application. It may be necessary to clear your cache. So the instructions are saying how to clear your cache. You can find those 3 buttons up on the right-hand side. You're going to your settings and you're clicking clear browsing data. Clear the data. You should be able to make a new entry back to your site if you should have problems. Another tip that was given was what you may want to do before starting the process is just start the process in incognito mode. Incognito mode is specific to Google. I believe the other search engines may use in private browsing, or maybe some other term. I've seen in private browsing and I've seen incognito because I use back and forth between Google and Internet Explorer. You want to if you want to use incognito mode or in private mode, I'm sorry, I was losing my thought for a moment there. If you want to use one of those, then you can be assured of always getting back to the site where you're applying for your grant, because the navigation information was not actually saved. So now let's talk about the application. This is the first phase of the application. If you're on your cell phone, you will note that you see the little dot here, the application will scroll. So you're going to scroll up and the application will continue to move from section by section. In the first phase of it, you'll see first name, last name, email. This is the person who's applying on behalf of the nonprofit. You're putting this information in. Again, we talked about the valid email address. And one other note we want to say to you, if you notice on the screen, you see this little pop-up here. Please make sure your pop-up blocker, so again, this is going back into your settings. Make sure your pop-up blocker is turned off for this particular website. Messages like this will not appear on your screen if your pop-up blocker is set for all websites. please at least make sure it's open for this particular website, because there will be messages that you will need to see and respond to. This particular pop-up is saying if you wanted to opt out, because when you click on I accept the SMS text policy, when you click that, this is what pops up. Are you aware this is what it means? Lendistry will attempt to reach out to you by email, text message, and ultimately by phone call. This will be in the validation process. So you want to make sure you don't miss the communication and the manners in which they're trying to reach you, because if you're selected, they want you to receive your rightful grant. So please remember, take out the pop-up block on this particular screen. So when you click this up, the screen appears. You can close it and go to continue. On your next screen, again, we are literally scrolling up. So on your next screen, the information that's needed is the owner's first name, etc. Terms and conditions. When you click on the terms and condition box, again, the pop-up will actually appear for you, and you can read the terms and conditions. If you're satisfied, then you can click OK. On to the next portion of the application. Now it's the business name. Now we're asking for the name of the nonprofit, and you'll notice here it's the EIN, it's the phone number, it's the business type, it's the state of incorporation, it's the nonprofit status. Very important to complete all of these fields. You will not be able to navigate to the next section of the application without completing every field. So please note, if your nonprofit does not have a website, this is probably the biggest area that people may actually skip. If you do not have a website address, entry must be made in that field, so please use none.com. The other place where people might miss is, and you'll see it here, it's kind of small, but essentially here is where you would put in your NAICS code. If you don't know a NAICS code, or you're using a different NAICS code on your tax returns as needed for this particular program, you saw the 15 categories. Please make sure you look at one of those categories, find a comparing category on NAICS.com, and make sure to place that information here, or you can actually click on this little question mark and it will direct you directly to the site, and then you can find your particular category. Moving to the next section, what information is needed? What size grant are you applying for? And what is the purpose of the grant? What will you use the funds for? We talked about all the different uses in this application guide for your funds. State one of those and keep it pushing forward. Put one of those there, and again, keep it pushing forward. The amount of the grant will be chosen as well. And then, of course, please do not forget, this is for government reporting information. How many full-time people do you have working for your nonprofit? How many part-time people do you have working for your nonprofit? How many jobs do you expect to create? If this grant is helping to keep your business and your nonprofit moving forward, how many people do you expect to add to your business? Because now you're back in business, will you need to increase your staff? And please, when it comes to numbers of jobs retained, don't forget to count yourself. Whoever's applying for this particular grant, you count as well. You matter. Grant size, it just reminds you again what we talked about as far as the categories of what gross revenues you need and what grant you would be eligible for. And here, this is your business demographics, again, for government collection. What is the type of nonprofit that you're operating? And you can see from the fields, it's a B2B, it's a B2C. And then what does your business do? So you're going to explain your nonprofit, including your NAICS code. You're going to be adding it again. And then don't forget to include the government disclosure statuses. And by the way, there is a part of the drop down says choose not to state. You're welcome to do that, but you must choose something. Remember, as we said before, every field must be completed in order for you to move to the next stage of the application. Now it's giving you disclosures. There are questions here. You can answer the disclosures. I'm not going to read them. Because you'll see this when you actually apply in the application. There are drop downs. It's yes, no answers. Yes, no, yes, no. $1 amount will be needed here. And then finally, you're clicking submit. When you reach this stage, you've essentially completed all of the fields necessary for the application. Now, if you decide, well, you know what, I'm not quite ready to submit yet. Maybe you didn't have your tax returns handy, or you had the wrong year, or some information somewhere along the way that will be uploaded later, but you needed it to complete the application. You have to return and get, you run out of time, whatever. You can just hit save and continue, and all the information that you included will be saved. If you shut your computer down, if your computer should blow up along the way, I actually had that happen to me. My computer just decided to shut down on me in the middle of a dummy application, in fact. All information is lost. So please make sure that you're at a secured site where it's good internet signal and you can get through the application. And then if for some reason you have to step away from your application, just hit save and continue, save and continue later. You can then exit out of the site. You can go back and continue later. You can edit your application at that point as well. If you type in yes here, oh, I'm sorry, it's going to display it. If you type in yes, so you notice that it says type in yes. So this is an actual question in the field. It is going to tell you, you can click and save later. So what I'm sharing with you is providing here in the instructions, but it's going to say if you desire to continue forward, you must type in yes. By typing in yes, it will now open up the continue block. Save and continue will go gray. Continue will become purple, and now you can continue your application. When you use continue, you will get a message that's going to tell you that the email that you provided, a new password is going to be sent to you in order for you to reset your password. So you want to pay attention to these instructions because there's a limited time of the validity of the password. It's a temporary password that is sent to you. So you want to go ahead and make sure when you're applying for this particular process, you're ready to continue forward if you want that password document, and you must go ahead and reset your password in a timely manner. Otherwise, it expires, and guess what? You have to call Lendistry and ask them to initiate a new password request. The system will not do it the next time you enter. If you did not use the password that was provided to you, you'll have to call to get another one. So please make sure that you're ready when you apply. So when you get that, you can at least reset your password. This is the letter that will be sent to you. It'll be emailed to you, and it will tell you this is your new password. This is a temporary password. You'll always use your you'll always use as your username the email that's you're going to receive all information through. That will continue throughout the process. It's just the password will be temporary. When you receive this letter, you want to go to, let's see if it's going to show. It's going to show, not here. Well, when you receive this letter and you enter back in, click here to log in. You will then see where it's going to say existing clients apply here. What you're doing is you're putting in the name, and enter here, you're putting in the name and password, the temporary password. The system will then say, are you ready to reset your password? You put in the temporary password in one more time. So I would use cut and paste, save it on your desktop so you can just cut and paste it, and then type in your new password. When you complete the application, the first stage of information will say incomplete. Now, though you may have completed all fields in the application, and you may have even uploaded documents, and it still says incomplete, that's because there's other information that will be needed to be included later, like your banking information. So that's why it'll say incomplete, but don't panic. It does not mean the information that you entered is not correct. It just means that there's more information that has to be added to the application, and you will notice it at the bottom. It says edit application. So now you have the opportunity. You can't change your application information, but you do have the opportunity to upload documents when you enter back in or upload your banking information at that particular point in time. And then you will note the other message that you may see is pending document upload. And this is where you're going to be, you're now being reminded that it is time to upload banking information had you not uploaded it before. And that's the end for that slide, but we'll just keep moving. We'll talk more about the banking information later. So the portal at a glance, this is what it's going to look like when it's time to upload documentation. Fairly self-explanatory in terms of it's organized well enough for you to understand each category that you want to upload information. Information should be available on your desktop. And you'll upload document by document. You want to upload them to the specific categories. You notice here it says government ID. Here it says most recent 2019 tax returns or some form of information for 2019 because it may be your 990s and not the full tax returns, but you want to do it by category. So you're going to click on the particular category. Sorry, touching it as if I can do it. You're going to click on the particular category. You're going to go browse documents on your computer. You're going to find the particular document that you want to upload. It will give you another button that will say upload. You'll upload it, and the end result will be complete for that particular category. That process will continue through all of the categories until everything is completed, and your total percentage of completion will be 100%, and you'll see that again later in the screen. So here's an example of the upload process, browsing the document, clicking, etc. And then it's showing complete versus pending. So there's always a way for you to know I'm not finished. Very, very important. Linking your banking information, I'd like to remind everyone again, I would wait on including banking information. The system will allow you to do it, by the way, if you're the A type, much like I am, and want to get everything done right away. So it's one less thing I have to think about. You can do that. It's just if you're not selected for the grant, the information will just go, the information will be discarded ultimately, held in the archives by the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. This information is not shared with anyone. There will be no third-party solicitations. Lendistry will not be soliciting you because, oh, we have your data, let's solicit you. But your banking information will be validated. It's important to know that when you link this banking information. If your bank account has a 2-step or 3-step authentication process, please know that the system is going to ask you for passwords. It's not storing it. It's just giving Plaid. This is a platform owned by Visa where this banking information is validated. There are 14,000 banks on Visa's Plaid platform. So it's going to validate your banking information and then report back to the system. The account, it must be a business bank account, and it can be a business checking or a business savings, but it must be a business account. It cannot be a personal account. The system is going to verify that it's either a checking or savings. It's a business account. It's either checking or it's savings, and that the account number and routing number are indeed corresponding to the organization, and they are valid. That report, that Plaid report, you will receive a copy of it. So you'll see that there is all of your banks, any lending that you've done in the past. So it's all banking information will be on the Plaid report, but you'll want to know, again, that information is not shared. This is owned and housed by Visa. It's Plaid, and the only people that will see this information on the other side of your computer will be the folks at Plaid and the validation team at Lendistry. When they're validating the banking information, no one else will have access to that information. It is indeed bulletproof. When you're looking for your application, when you want to find your application as you have completed it, some key points you want to remember: your DIR number. I would jot down your DIR number somewhere just in case you're trying to go back into your application and you go to CaliforniaReliefGrant.com and you want to look up your application. It says, what's your DIR number? Well, you want to do that. Or if you call Lendistry, maybe you're into your application, you're calling Lendistry, the person is going to say, what is your DIR number? So we can look it up for you most expeditiously. So you want to remember that. Remember that the system will always, as you're completing sections at the end, when you're preparing to log out, after you log out, it will give you your application status. Where are you? Applied for a California Relief Grant as a arts and cultural nonprofit, awaiting selection process. So it will gauge you, where you are in the process. And the other status, it may say status of your application. Example, it may say awaiting application, awaiting selection process, but there is one, and we'll see that later, where it's saying you've been selected. So here are the 5 stages or the 5 messages. It's incomplete. It's awaiting the selection process. It's selected, pending validations, in closing, docs out, pending for funding. So that means you're in closing, you've signed your documents. So let's just explain docs out. They've mailed you the documents. They've emailed you the documents, and they're waiting for you to return the documents. If you've signed and returned the documents, then your status would be the other side of the slash, which is pending for funding. You're waiting for funds to be received. And ultimately, when they deposit the money in your account, you will see a message on your screen that says, grant has been funded. And just the selection decisions in the portal. So they're just demonstrating you again, showing you the actual display of some of those particular messages, right? Selected, pending validation, or your application was not selected. So, I'm sorry, so this is final result. Final result is you're selected pending validation, and you saw the other steps where it's moving you forward, or you were not selected for the grant. The system will let you know. You will not be left in limbo wondering, did I get selected? And what this slide is just simply saying here, this portion of the application guide is going through the steps that I just talked about, what you'll need to do after you're selected for the grant, which is putting in your banking information and following the process accordingly. So that, ladies and gentlemen, actually concludes our presentation on this morning. I'm going to just take a look in the chat to see if all questions were actually answered. And let's see, Dr. Wells, thank you. It says, I would like to share this webinar with an organization that better fits requirements on arts and cultural entity. Can it be emailed to me? Actually, we're going to post where you can get a copy of the webinar so you can direct the people right to this webinar. This is being recorded. It will be posted on our website. And you can also go to CaliforniaReliefGrant.com. There are other webinars being conducted. So if it's not the one that I have presented on today, the other organizations that you're saying that are a better fit for this particular grant can find either new live webinars to go to, or they can find recordings of the webinar as well. But we will hold on. A member of my staff will grab your contact information. We'll hold on to that. Make sure to, if you're not receiving it, let me give you my information. In fact, let me just do this. If for any reason you are not able to get a hold of the, excuse me, of the actual webinar, let me know. I will make sure that we send it to you, but it should be available online. And this is how you can find me via email. Dr. Wells, I thank you so much, and perhaps there are others that have joined, but you're the only one that has asked the question that is remaining unanswered at this point. I hope that you've enjoyed the presentation. I want to encourage you, Dr. Wells, if this is your first time learning of this grant, even though there are other organizations that may better fit this particular criterion, and if you have not applied for the grant before, please consider round 5. It will open on March the 25th. The grant levels are the same, $5,000, $15,000, or $25,000. The only difference is the $25,000 grant, you could not have gross revenues in your business more than $2.5 million to be eligible for that level of the grant. But I'd like to encourage you, Dr. Wells, if the grant in and of itself would provide an opportunity for you to benefit your business, please make it a point to apply and just simply wait till March 25th when the round opens again. It is the same website, CAReliefGrant.com. There, if you're applying as a for-profit business or a nonprofit business that just didn't fit these particular categories, there you will be looking for a partner. We ask that you would go by county, because you'll see a select partner by county, select partner by city. So you can look for county or city, but please look for AmPac Business Capital. We're in the list. We're at the top of pretty much at the top of the list, and maybe one ahead of us. I'm trying to think who might be ahead of us at the moment, but anyway, please look for AmPac. Please apply for the grant there. All righty, so we thank you everyone for joining the webinar on this morning. We appreciate your questions. Thank you to the team who has answered questions along the way. We're here to serve you, and we want to remind you of our mission that we're here to make families stronger and communities better by being champions of job makers, small business. God bless you for all you do. Thank you so much for your service to our communities, and this ends our webinar. Have a great day.